I mentioned to you before, there will be a video with every assignment. I just started recording, so what you see on the screen, the things that we say during class, the things that I write on the screen will all be contained in the video. If for some reason you miss part of the notes, you get behind a little bit, want to rewatch it just because you know it'll make you feel better, to see it and live it again, it'll be there by the end of the school day. Okay, it'll be a YouTube video at some point. If you want to go on my YouTube channel and get you can do all that, but it's always going to be embedded into the assignment, so you don't have to go somewhere else to watch it. All right. So this first section is expressions and formulas. You should have done this before. Okay. And the first problem I'm going to put up here is something that's been going around recently, and there has been debate about what the correct answer is. So, you probably saw this problem, okay? Somewhere in social media it's been going around, it's a viral thing, and people are arguing what the correct answer is. What I want you to do is write it down and do it, and then don't say anything, and then we'll talk about it. Feel free to show your work. That'll make it easier to justify your answer. There are typically two camps on this problem. There is the camp who believes the correct answer is 1, and there is the camp who believes the correct answer is 16. If you have something other than 1 or 16, you're definitely wrong. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Okay? So, here's the thing. I'm going to show you the steps that you're supposed to take, and we're going to talk a little bit about order of operations. Okay? Let's by a show of hands. How many are in the I have 1 as my answer camp? Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay? How many have 16 as your answer? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. All right. So, someone want to tell me what the first move is?
2 plus 2. Yeah.
Why? Parentheses. So, right. The first move, let me make sure I did them all. Yep, no I didn't. Okay. So the first move is you do what's inside parentheses first. That is correct. Okay, now here's where we get into trouble. Okay, because order of operations says to do what after parentheses? It says exponents, thank you, but there are no exponents. Okay, and I'll be in the interest of full disclosure, I hate PEMDAS because you're going to see why in a minute. Because some of you think what comes after exponents? Multiplication. You think multiplication comes after exponents, but it actually doesn't. Yes, you have been. Multiplication. What comes after multiplication in your mind? Division. The truth is, multiplication and division are equals. You have to go left to right when you get to multiplication. So PEMDAS has taught you that multiplication is more important than division, which it is not. They are equal. Okay? Now, the other argument that comes up is, well, there's still parentheses there, so I do the parentheses. And so what people often do is say, okay, because the 4 is still in parentheses, I have to take care of that with the 2. But the reality is we've done everything inside the parentheses we can do. The only purpose of having the parentheses now is to indicate that it is being multiplied by 2. Okay, so the parentheses are actually done. So because multiplication and division are equally important, they have the same priority, you go from left to right. Because all I have left here, I have division and I have multiplication right there. When a number sits next to parentheses, that means multiplication. So I have 2 operations left. And the one that they are equally important, so therefore you go from left to right. So in reality, what you actually do next is 8 divided by 2. Okay? And those of you who are wondering, that's 4. The 4 is still there. 4 times 4, that is 16. 16 is the correct answer. Now I know how you got 1. I know that what you did is you did this multiplication next. And it could have been because you think multiplication comes before division. That could be one of the reasons. It could be that you see these parentheses and think you still have to do whatever's there first. But the fact is we did everything inside here that we could. Now, This is one of the great problems that I see with students all the time, is rather than following the rules the way they are set out, you make up your own rules. However, some of that's not your fault because we teach you things like PEMDAS, where PEMDAS is actually misleading. It makes it seem like multiplication is more important than division. It makes it seem like addition is more important than subtraction, but that's not true. Okay? So I'm going to break it down a little bit differently because we're not going to talk about PEMDAS anymore after today. All right? What we are going to talk about is something a little bit different, and I'm going to write it to you a little bit differently. Now, some of what you're going to see on this comes straight from your book. Some of it is from me. Okay? So the way I like to think of order of operations, if you need to remember anything, it's now no longer going to be PEMDAS. It's going to be GEMDAS. And notice how I put it. Okay, the reason I put a bunch of space between the G and the E is because there's so many other types of symbols that essentially do the same thing as a set of parentheses. And we're going to write down all of them so that you're used to understanding what that's supposed to be. In fact, I feel like I didn't even write what the G stands for. I didn't. Huh. I'll do it after. All right. So, here's... Oh, no. It's here. Never mind. I'm sorry. So here we go. Here's what G actually stands for. Evaluate the expressions inside grouping symbols. So the G stands for grouping symbols. Parentheses, as we've already mentioned, are one type of group symbol, right? That's the one that you were introduced to long ago, and that's the one you feel most comfortable with. However, there's lots of different types of grouping symbols, and we're going to talk about all of them. And when you see a set of grouping symbols, you're going to want to do what's inside of those first and simplify that first. Okay? So somebody want to give me another set of grouping symbols. Name them.
Brackets.
Brackets. Okay? So those look like parentheses, but they're squared off, right? What else? No, this is gonna come. I know why you're laughing. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even include those. I don't think. Did I not?
The things.
The things. Yes. What do they look like? What? Absolute value. That's another one. So they're just straight up and down lines. Absolute value. Okay. What else is there? Yeah.
The ones that are like curvy.
Curvy, the squiggly ones. Do you know what those are called?
No.
Those are called braces, and they look. Ugh. I do such a bad job drawing them. Like this. Nope. Can't do it. Alright, that's the best I'm going to do. I actually have them typed up here, and they will appear in type in a second, so they're going to look better. What else is there? I did leave off absolute value from that. Huh. I have to fix that. Can you think of anything else that does that? Nope. Nope. All right. I'm going to give them to you. So here are them, and I have to add in the absolute value because I've left it off. So add absolute value to it. So we included all of them. Now, you're wondering maybe what some of these other things are. This, we typically call that a square root, okay, when there's not a little number by it, but it's known as a radical. So you do everything on the inside of there first. It groups those numbers together. This one here, probably you would never have thought of. A fraction bar. A fraction bar is a grouping symbol because it groups the numerator, the top, together separately from the denominator. Okay, so those are all the different grouping symbols. So right away when we go with PEMDAS and we throw all those other ones in there, in my mind we've created something that doesn't cover it all and makes it harder for us to learn. Okay? So all of those things, you simplify as far as you can inside of there, whenever you can, and then you can move out from there. Alright? Questions on that? Alright, so E, we know what E is. What's E?
Exponents.
Okay, so those are powers. You evaluate all powers. Figure out what you can get with the powers. Exponents or powers? Question. Inside the grouping symbols, yes, that was a good question. Inside the grouping symbols, you go left to right. You do sort of order of operations inside of those grouping symbols too. Okay? Good question. So now, notice how I put M and D on the same line because they're equally important. Alright? So multiplication or divide from left to right. Super important. If that's all you have left, and they are at equal footing, they have the same priority, then you go from left to right. And if division comes first, you do division first. If multiplication comes first from left to right, you do multiplication first. But you gotta follow the order. You gotta follow the order of operations. Don't make your own up. Okay. And then of course the last one is addition and subtraction. Again, from left to right. If that's all that's left. Addition and subtraction are equal to each other in priority. So that's everything. Now, that's not an 11, that's an absolute value. Let me spread it out a little bit. Alright, so let's work through a problem, another problem. And this is similar to the stuff that you're going to be doing today. Here's the difference. When you see the word evaluate, what they mean is plug in the values for the variables that are given and simplify it down to a final answer. Now, if you notice here, and you've done problems like this before, they're telling us what A equals in this problem. They're telling us what B equals in this problem. All you've got to do is plug it into this expression. This is known as an expression, not an equation. There's no equal sign over there. That's an expression. You're going to plug, the way I describe it is plug and chug. Plug those in for the numbers, or for the variables, plug those numbers in. Simplify it down using order of operations, and work down. So what should end up happening is you start and you funnel it down to a final answer. That's how I want you to work through these. Don't keep writing your next line to the right. You have an unlimited supply of quote-unquote paper. You don't have to worry about saving the trees or any of that. Like you don't run out of paper. You have an unlimited supply on your iPad. So just work your way down, use up space, go through this problem and figure it out. My preference is that you do not use a calculator today. Okay? So for those of you who are reaching for it, put it away and work through it by hand. Please go. So after you fill it in like that, one of the things that you may not have done is put parentheses around the negative 3.2. Now, here's why I think it's important to do that. Because it's a negative, what it reminds you is that not only are you squaring the 3.2, but you're also squaring the negative. And one of the things that will happen when you get to this place on your calculator is if you were to put negative 3.2 in to your calculator like this, okay, it's going to give you the wrong answer because it is not going to square the negative. It's really going to do this, and then it's going to drop that negative on after. So that's where you think the calculator is giving you the wrong answer, but the truth is you actually just entered it in incorrectly. So it's really important when you have a negative number to a power that you put that negative in parentheses like it is here. All right. Now, of all the stuff there, what do you think I do first? Parentheses. So what's in the parentheses? Tell me specifically what I have to do. Yep, I've got this negative 3 minus 5, negative 3.2 minus 5. Am I going to add those two numbers together or subtract them? How do you know? See, there's so many rules in math, right? And you got to remember them.
You just know.
Add and keep the
The signs are the same. Negative 3.2, think of it like negative 5. Since the numbers have the same sign, you add them and keep the sign. Okay? So this should give me negative 8.2. And it's since it's sitting right next to it, those two are eventually going to be multiplied. But I can't multiply them yet. I have to square negative 3.2 now. What's 3.2 squared? Negative 3.2 squared. Nobody? Anybody? Huh? It should be positive. So negative times negative is a positive. So it is. It's 10.24. And then I have to multiply that by negative 8.2. So from here we're pretty well there. Multiply, then add, and then we get our final answer. So let me show you what all the work should look like. Okay? This is how we work our way down. So again, we did this. That was the first thing that we did. That was the first step. Okay? The second step, okay, was the squaring. The third step was multiply those two together to get this. Okay. And then the fourth step, let's go blue. The fourth step is this addition. Okay. And it's actually subtraction because the signs are different. One's positive, one's negative. Did anybody have that? I know I didn't give you enough time and you wish you would have used a calculator. On your homework you can use your calculator. However, and notice how it funnels down to a final answer. That's how I want it to look. When you use your calculator, I do not want you to just type it in and put the answer. This is the work you have to show. So if you want to use a calculator for this step here, to get this, you're welcome to. If you want to use a calculator to square negative 3.2, you are welcome to. If you want to use a calculator to add 5 and negative 83.9, oh sorry, I skipped this. If you want to use a calculator to multiply these, you are welcome to. But notice all the steps that I'm making you show. You have to show them. I know the calculator can do it if you type it in correctly. I'm not judging your ability to use a calculator. I'm not judging the accuracy of your calculator. I'm judging how well you know the order of operations if you know how to apply them properly. This is a fundamental base kind of thing that is going to either promote your success in math moving forward or inhibit it. Okay? So for those of you who feel like math isn't your best thing, my guess is part of it is because you struggle with this a little bit. So we're going to go back to it, we're going to revisit it, we're going to practice it. Hopefully I cleared some things up with my explanation about order of operations, and just follow those steps and we should be in good shape. Okay? Are there any questions? Now, your assignment today, I believe I assigned you 13 problems. 13 problems. A lot of them are like this. There is a word problem in there too. One of the things I want to be sure of, if there's a word problem, most of the time your final answer will need to have some kind of label on it. If the whole problem talks about inches and your final answer is a number, it's a number of inches, for example. I just get used to this. If you don't put the label, I'm going to take points off. There's context to your math problem. One of the things students complain about all the time is, when am I ever going to use this? When is the practical application of this? Well, here's a word problem that's all about a practical application. Then make sure your answer is in the context still. Okay? So be careful on that. If it's just a bunch of numbers like this, obviously the number is just fine. Okay? So if you go to modules, or if you go to your calendar, if you go to assignments, I don't care where you go, it's 1.1 homework is what you're doing. Okay? And if you want to screenshot the problems from the book and insert it into Notability, you're welcome to do that. If you want to split screen and write each problem down in your Notability, you're welcome to do that. How you do your homework is really kind of up to you. Alright, I know kids like to change colors with every problem. I know kids like to highlight their answer. Keep it organized. That's the one thing I will tell you. If you're all over the place, please don't do that. I need it organized like this. That way I can follow your thinking, which means I can figure out if you're thinking properly, which also means if you aren't, I can help you fix that. Okay?